The wind wasn't just blowing, it was screaming. It was the kind of sound that gets into your bones, a high-pitched wail that tells you nature has stopped caring about whether you live or die. Inside the freezing metal shell of a 2008 Honda Civic, Elena was learning exactly what that indifference felt like. She couldn't feel her toes anymore. That was the first bad sign. The second was the silence coming from the car engine, which had sputtered and died 20 minutes ago, leaving her stranded on a stretch of highway that God seemed to have forgotten. But the worst sign, the one that made her heart hammer against her ribs like a trapped bird, was the silence from the back seat. Her 10-month-old son, Leo, had stopped crying. He was just quiet. Too quiet. The snow was piling up against the driver's side window, turning the world into a wall of white, burying them alive one flake at a time. Elena gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, tears freezing on her cheeks before they could even roll down to her chin. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she didn't truly believe anyone was listening to. And then she heard it. Not the wind, not the snow, a low, rhythmic rumble, a growl that vibrated through the floorboards of her dead car. She wiped the condensation off the glass and squinted into the abyss. Two beams of yellow light cut through the blizzard like dragon eyes. A massive black pickup truck, rigged for the apocalypse, slowed to a crawl next to her. Through the swirling snow, the door opened. A boot the size of a cinder block hit the slush. And then she saw the vest. Even through the storm, the patch was unmistakable. The winged skull, the red and white lettering. A Hell's Angel. Elena locked her door, her breath hitching in her throat. She thought she was being saved, but now, staring at the giant of a man walking toward her helpless vehicle, she was terrified she was about to be destroyed. Welcome back to the fire, friends. Welcome back to BIS Stores. If you're looking for Gloucester the fairy tales, you're in the wrong place. But if you're here for the raw, grit and gravel truth about the human heart, pull up a chair. We tell stories here about the people society overlooks and the heroes who don't wear capes, they wear leather. Before we settle into this storm, do me a favor. If you want to keep riding with us on these journeys, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps us keep the fire burning. Now, let's go back to that frozen highway where a mother is about to make a choice that will change her life forever. Elena watched the man approach. He was terrifying, that's the only word for it. He was a mountain of a man, his beard crusted with ice, his shoulders broad enough to block out the little light that remained in the sky. He wasn't wearing a heavy winter parka, he was wearing layers of flannel and leather, topped with that infamous cut. To Elena, a woman who had grown up hearing warnings about men like him, he looked like walking trouble. She had fleeing an abusive ex-husband, a man who had a temper like a lit fuse, and her nerves were already shot. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every stranger looked like an enemy. She checked the lock again, a futile gesture against a man of that size, and huddled deeper into her coat. She looked in the rearview mirror at Leo. He was wrapped in 3 blankets, but the air inside the car was dropping rapidly. It was already below freezing outside. The man reached her window. He didn't bang on it. He didn't shout. He just tapped, 3 distinct heavy taps, with a gloved knuckle. Elena shook her head, tears spilling over again. She mouthed the words, "Go away." She was paralyzed by the paradox of her situation. If she stayed in the car, the cold would take them. If she opened the door to this outlaw, who knew what would happen? The man seemed to understand her fear. He didn't force the door. He bent down, his face coming level with the glass. He pulled down the scarf covering his mouth and took off his dark sunglasses, revealing eyes that were surprisingly tired. They weren't angry. They were old, weary, and urgent. He shouted over the roar of the wind, his voice deep and gravelly, barely penetrating the glass. "You can't stay in there," he yelled. "The tailpipe is buried. Even if you get it started, the carbon monoxide will kill you both in 10 minutes. Look at your baby, lady." He's too quiet. That hit Elena like a physical slap. He was right. Leo? She looked back at the baby. He wasn't moving. Panic, hot and searing, melted her fear of the stranger. She unlocked the door with trembling fingers. The wind ripped it out of her hand, nearly tearing it off the hinges, and the cold air rushed in like a physical blow. The biker didn't grab her. He didn't reach for her purse or make a move. He simply held out a hand, a massive cow's palm that looked like it had seen 1,000 fights and 1,000,000 miles. "Come with me," the Hell's Angel said. It wasn't a command, it was a plea. "My truck is warm. I've got heat. I'm not gonna hurt you, but you gotta move." Now, there is a moment in everyone's life where you have to decide to trust the universe, even when the package it arrives in looks dangerous. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt. Her hands were so numb she fumbled with the clasp. The biker, let's call him Silas, saw her struggling. He leaned in. "May I?" She nodded, freezing. He clicked the belt open, then reached into the back seat. With a gentleness that seemed impossible for a man of his size, he scooped up the car seat with Leo still strapped inside. He shielded the baby's face from the biting wind with his own body, turning his back to the storm to create a human wall of leather and flesh. "Run to the truck," Silas shouted over his shoulder. "Passenger side, it's unlocked." "Go!" Elena scrambled out, her legs feeling like blocks of wood. She slipped on the ice, her knees hitting the asphalt hard, but the adrenaline kept her moving. She dove into the cab of the massive black truck. The heat hit her instantly. It smelled of tobacco, peppermint, and old coffee, a scent that would forever remind her of safety. Silas climbed in the driver's side a moment later, placing the car seat gently on the wide center console between them. He slammed the door, shutting out the scream of the blizzard. The silence in the cab was sudden and heavy. For a long minute, nobody spoke. The only sound was the heater blasting at full force and the ragged breathing of Elena. Silas rubbed his hands together, blowing on them. He didn't look at her. He gave her space, sensing her terror. He looked at the baby. He reached out a finger, hesitant, and touched Leo's cheek. "He's warming up," Silas mumbled. "Cheeks are getting pink again." "He's okay." Elena burst into tears, great racking sobs that shook her entire body. The stress, the fear, the cold, the relief, it all came crashing down at once. She covered her face with her hands, ashamed of breaking down in front of this stranger, this criminal. Silas didn't tell her to stop. He didn't tell her it was going to be okay. He reached under his seat and pulled out a thermos. He unscrewed the cap, poured steaming black coffee into it, and held it out to her. "Drink," he said softly. "It's got sugar. You need the shock." She took it, her hand shaking so hard she spilled a little on her jeans. The hot liquid burned her throat in the best way possible. She took a deep breath, wiping her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. I thought you thought I was the devil coming to collect," Silas finished for her, a small, sad smile playing on his lips. He pointed to the patch on his vest. "People see this and they see everything they've been told to fear. They don't see a guy who's just trying to get home to his dog. They don't see a father." Lena looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. She saw the gray in his beard, the lines around his eyes etched by years of squinting into the sun. "You have kids?" "Had," Silas said, the word hanging in the air like smoke. He put the truck into gear. "Had a daughter. About your age, actually. Lost her to the road a few years back." Drunk driver crossed the center line. He stared out at the white-out conditions ahead. "I couldn't save her, but I saw your car. I saw the little baby shoe on the dashboard, and I figured maybe the big man upstairs is giving me a second chance to get a girl home safe." The truck crawled forward, the massive tires crunching through the snow. Silas navigated the storm with a calm expertise. He wasn't just driving, he was fighting the elements for them. Over the next hour, as they crept toward the nearest town, the dynamic shifted. The monster became the guardian. Elena found herself really talking. She told him about the eviction notice. She told him about running from a man who used his fists when he was angry. She told him she had $40 to her name and no idea where she was going. Silas listened. He didn't interrupt with advice. He didn't judge, he just nodded, his eyes scanning the road, absorbing her pain as if he could carry some of the weight for her. That is something people forget about bikers. The lifestyle is about brotherhood, yes, but it's also about listening. When you spend hours on a bike with nothing but the wind in your ears, you learn the value of words. You learn that when someone trusts you with their story, it's a sacred thing. "We're gonna stop at a motel, I know," Silas said as the lights of a small town flickered into view through the snow. "The owner owes me a favor. It's not the Ritz, but it's clean and the walls are thick." Elena's heart sank. I can't afford a room. "I have gas money, that's it." Silas shot her a look. It was stern, almost angry, but not at her. "Did I ask you for money? You're with me. In my world, when you're with a patch, you're protected. That includes your wallet." They pulled into the Starlight Motor Inn. It was a rundown place with a flickering neon sign, the kind of place Elena would have been terrified to stop at alone. But walking behind Silas, stepping into his enormous shadow, she felt a strange sense of invincibility. The clerk behind the desk, a skinny teenager with acne, looked up and his eyes widened when he saw the Hell's Angel. He stood up straighter. "Mr. Silas," the kid stammered. "Didn't expect you in this weather." "Roads are closed, Timmy," Silas grunted. "Need a room. Ground floor. Double heat. And I need you to run across the street to the diner and get some soup, tomato, and grilled cheese, and warm milk." He slapped a $50 bill on the counter. "Keep the change." "Yes, sir," the kid said, scrambling for a key. Silas walked Elena to the room. He opened the door, checked the heater, turned on the lights, and even checked the bathroom. It was instinctual for him, securing the perimeter. He brought the car seat in and set it on the bed. Leo was waking up now, cooing softly, his cheeks flushed with warmth. "I'll be in the truck," Silas said, turning to leave. "I'm gonna sleep in the cab. I've got sleeping bags." "I'll keep an eye on the door." "No," Elena said. "Dig." "I'll keep an eye on the door." "No," Elena said. The word surprised her. "No, please. It's freezing. You saved our lives. Please, take the other bed. I trust you." And she meant it. The fear was gone. In its place was a profound gratitude that made her chest ache. Silas hesitated, looking at her, then at the storm raging outside. He nodded once, slowly. "All right, but I sleep in the chair by the window. Old habits." That night, amidst the howling wind, Elena slept deeper than she had in months. She felt safe, not because of a lock on the door, but because of the man sitting in the armchair, his arms crossed, watching the storm like a sentinel. The next morning the sun broke through. The world was buried in dazzling white snow. Elena woke up to the smell of food. Silas had already been out. There were bags of groceries on the table, diapers, formula, snacks, water, and there was an envelope. Silas was packing his gear. He looked uncomfortable, like he was ready to bolt. Goodbyes were clearly not his strong suit. "Storms broke," he said gruffly. "Plows are out. I pulled your car to the local shop down the street. Mechanic is a buddy. He's fixing the alternator and the heater core. Bill is settled." Elena stood up, clutching Leo to her chest. "Silas, I don't know what to say. How can I ever repay you?" He pointed to the envelope on the table. "Don't open that until I'm gone." "And you don't repay me. You just raise that boy to be a good man. Teach him that respect isn't about fear. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves." He paused, his hand on the doorknob. He looked back at her, and the hardness in his face melted for just a second. "You're a good mom, Elena. You kept him warm. You survived. Don't let anyone tell you you're weak." And then he was gone, just like that. The rumble of the truck faded down the highway, heading toward whatever destination called to him. Elena opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of cash, $5,000, and a note scrawled on the back of a napkin, "For a fresh start. Don't look back. Weeping. S." She fell onto the bed, weeping, not tears of sorrow, but tears of hope. She had thought her life was ending in that snowbank. She had thought the world was cold and cruel. and in the form of a terrifying biker, a man the world labeled a thug, she had found the warmest heart she had ever known. So, what do we take from this, my friends? What lesson do we carry with us from the snowy highway? It's simple, but it's hard to learn. We are programmed to judge. We see a patch, a tattoo, a scar, and we write a story in our heads. We label people dangerous or safe based on the costumes they wear, but the storm doesn't care about your costume. And when the blizzard hits, when the chips are down, you find out who people really are. Sometimes the person in the suit and tie is the wolf who will leave you to freeze. And sometimes the monster in the leather vest is the angel who will carry you through the fire. Silas didn't know Elena. He owed her nothing. By the laws of the street, he should have kept riding. But true strength isn't about how loud your pipes are or how hard your punch is. True strength is having the power to destroy but choosing to save. Next time you see someone who looks different, someone who looks rough around the edges, remember Silas. Remember that behind the toughest exterior often lies a heart that has been broken enough to know exactly how to fix someone else's. Take care of each other out there. The road is long and the storms are unpredictable. But as long as we have people willing to stop, willing to open the door and say, "Come with me, we're going to make it." Ride safe, love hard, and never judge a book by its cover, especially if that cover is leather. See you in the next story.